Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Baylett. I'm Chief Academic Officer at Kaplan Early Learning Company. Thank you for joining me today for this talk on developmentally appropriate practices to boost early childhood language development. Here's a little bit about me. I have a PhD in communication disorders from Northwestern University, and I'm also a licensed school psychologist. So no surprise that I'm really passionate about early language and literacy development. And I'm most passionate about the great opportunity we have as early childhood professionals to promote strong language and literacy development from the very beginning, setting children on a great lifelong trajectory. Here are our goals for today. We're going to look through the lens of NACCE's wonderful developmentally appropriate practices position statement. We're going to explore some key aspects of language development in early childhood, and we're going to discuss a few selected books and toys that, in my experience, really help children build critical language skills. So I think it's important as we begin this exploration today on language to stop and reflect for a minute about the power of language. You know, language capacity of humans is probably our most extraordinary achievement because it enables such high levels of communication and collaboration that are otherwise just going to be impossible. Language also promotes the ability to think beyond what is immediately before us and to apply concepts and solve problems in novel ways. And if you think about it, the development of language in young children is one of the most important and exciting aspects of their growth. Think about every parent who eagerly awaits their baby's first words. It is such an important milestone, and it's one of those things that makes us most fully human. So the power of language is just incredible, which is part of why I'm always so excited to talk about it. So I've selected out several of the key principles from NACCE's developmentally appropriate position statement. I have put them in a different order for purposes of this presentation than you'll find in the position statement itself. So that's just my choice for purposes of this presentation. So one of the principles that for me in terms of language development is critically important is this one: children are active learners from birth, and actually children are active learners from before birth. Babies are absolutely born to learn language. And we know that the quality of social emotional relationships is everything in terms of providing the foundation for language development. Language is ultimately a social endeavor, and we learn language through social emotional interaction. And believe it or not, future reading development and success depends on a child's spoken language foundation. So everything that we do with infants and toddlers to build their oral language skills is also preparing them for future reading success. Here are some key language milestones that just reiterate the points that I just made. There's research that shows that newborns already recognize sounds that are native in their language versus those that are non-native to their language, because not all languages have their own sounds, right? We don't all languages don't have all the exact same sounds, but newborns can already differentiate between sounds that are part of their language that they've heard for 9 months from their mother and sounds that aren't part of the language they've heard from their mother. By 6 to 12 months of age, they're selecting out and classifying critical speech elements and patterns, and they're able to have simple conversations. And by 10 to 12 months of age, they are completely ignoring non-native sounds. Their brains are calculating from before birth what sounds are important in the culture where I live, that are important and which ones don't matter in my language and my culture. So that tells you right there, language is socially and culturally based. And you see the toys on the right side of the slide that are just great for sharing all kinds of vocabulary words with young children and drawing out their interest in different colors and shapes and familiar objects and textures that help them start to practice and learn language foundations. By age 1, children understand several words and they say one or more words, and they'll have clear pointing behavior and other types of social gestures, things like waving hello and goodbye. By age 2, they're speaking in short phrases, and believe it or not, they're learning 10 to 20 new words per day. That's a lot going on in those little brains. By age 3, most children know about 1,100 words, and they're able to use those words to generate all kinds of sentence structures, create complex ideas, and hold pretty sophisticated conversations. And again, you can see the toys on the right side that bring out all of the possibilities for language, not only names of things, colors, shapes, foods, tools, but also actions, things that you can do with various tools. And those action words are so critical for children to build their grammar and sentence structure skills. So there's a very well-known French neuroscientist named Stanislas Dehaene, and he is an expert on language and literacy development and disorders in children. And he has said that every word is a tree. And I love that analogy, first of all, because I love words, second of all, because I love trees. But if you think about it, if we use a tree to represent a word, the word would be the main part of the trunk. But then, of course, that word has roots that connect it to other similar words and to its word origin. And then trees have branches. Words also branch to connect to other words. Another analogy for a word is an iceberg. So the word itself, like the word tulip, is just the tip of the iceberg because we've got that word tulip, but that word connects to many other words that are kind of not visible necessarily, but they're right beneath the surface and very important. So a tulip is a kind of flower. It blooms in early spring. It grows from a bulb. It's famous in Holland, and they come in many colors. Those are just some of the other words that that single word tulip connects to. So if we go back to the every word is a tree metaphor, in an impoverished, low quality environment, the trees aren't very healthy, are they? And there aren't many trees. And so if you think about trees as words, we've got some words in a language poor environment, but they don't have the deep roots. They don't branch to make connections with other words. And we know that by 18 months of age, children from language poor environments are far behind their peers from language rich environments, both in the number of words, the size of their vocabulary that they have, and perhaps more importantly, they're also very behind in their language processing speed. And when young children are trying to learn language, being able to very quickly process and analyze that torrent of speech that's coming at them, because we don't talk and pause after every single word for young children. We just talk to them, and it's like a continuous stream of speech. With slow language processing speed, it makes it harder and harder for children to separate out the vocabulary words and the key patterns and critical features. By age 3, their vocabulary size is only about 500, less than half that of their stronger peers. Because remember, I said most children by age 3 have mastered about 1,100 words, but those from those language poor environments are less than half of that at only about 500 words. And in the United States, it's been shown that by age 3, these children have heard 30 million words fewer than their stronger peers. That's the Hart and Risley study that's been so well cited by everyone. When you see the picture on the right, this is not a language poor environment. This is an example of what a language rich environment would look like, because we've got some interesting toys to play with, and we have an adult and a child clearly mutually focused and mutually engaged on that activity. And I guarantee you there's a great exchange of language going on between them. So what are some strategies to foster language development in young children? First and foremost, tune into that child. This is a picture of me with my first grandchild, Lena, when she was a tiny little baby. She's almost 5 now, so time really flies by. But I am singing to her. And I think you'd probably agree that she and I are so tuned into each other at this moment in time that a bomb could go off and we would not notice. It was such a special moment of pure magic for me. I'll never forget it. But we are completely in sync and tuned into one another. And I know she is processing the language that I'm singing to her. So important to follow the child's lead with a topic. Even infants will show preferences for things they like, books they like more than other books, toys they like more. Those are the things you want to talk about with the child. Follow their lead. Treat that child with respect. Assume he or she has something important to tell you, because guess what? They do. And if we're watching really carefully, we can see that they are able to communicate what they are thinking and feeling and what they want to share with us. Please give young children time to develop their ideas and words and phrases. It's a lot. It's hard to put words together to form complex language. And some children take a little more time to get that out. So don't interrupt and cut them off and finish their sentence for them. Give them the gift of time to develop those ideas and words and phrases, but then elaborate on them to affirm what they've said, and then extend it to make it a language modeling activity. And be sure to use a wide variety of words and sentence structures with young children. They need to be exposed to tens of thousands of different words a day in order to build the volume of vocabulary that's going to serve them well through school and for life. And you know, one of the main things to remember is 4 words: talk, read, and sing with children. And I'll tell you a story. Several years ago, I ended up on an airplane in a seat next to apparently a pretty famous rap artist. And he goes by 2 names, 8 Ball and Fat Boy. And I guess he's really good, because he told me he had recently been inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame, along with, I believe, Aretha Franklin. So I'm sitting next to this rap singer, and he asked me what I did professionally. And I said, well, I'm a child psychologist, and I focus mostly on language and literacy development in young children. And he immediately said, oh my gosh, this is perfect. He whipped out his cell phone and he showed me pictures of his 2.5-year-old grandson and his second newborn grandson. And he said to me, tell me, how should I talk to them? And so here's what I said to him: watch and listen and treat them with respect, as if they have something to say to you that's important, because they do. And if you're watching and expecting that, you will see it. And you will find pretty quickly that you're able to have a little turn-taking type of conversation, even with the baby, certainly with the 2.5-year-old. And I said, you need to be talking and reading and singing with them a lot every day. And then I said to him, think about it. You talk and sing for a living. So I said, you've got this. And he seemed so thrilled that I had put it in the context of what he already did, obviously at a very great high level, and that I made him comfortable that he had the skills that he could do this. And I pretty much guarantee you, I have not had follow up with him, but I bet his grandsons are great talkers today. Don't forget about the value of books to vastly expand the number and variety of words that a child is exposed to. Okay, here are some other developmentally appropriate practices from the NACI position paper that are particularly relevant to language development. Children learn best through integrated contextualized experiences. That's why we don't want to teach young children language through flashcards. Those are not integrated contextualized experiences. If you look at the picture on the right, children are moving, they're socially engaging, they've got a supportive, loving adult there, they're clearly having fun, and all of that fun and movement is going to naturally support and contextualize language development. Think about all the action words that you might hear and all the prepositions of under, over, up, down, through, around, behind, that motor activity and fun play like this can promote. And the principle that play promotes development in all domains, and all domains are important and interconnected. So for the littlest learners, everything is an activity, even feeling a rock or trying to lick a bubble or smell a flower. And through those explorations, the child is trying to answer some critical questions. What is this and what can I do with it? Or what can it do for me? And then later they'll build on that with what else can it do? What could this become? Could this be a symbol and stand in for something else that I need? So this is cognitive, motor, and language development in action. Some great toys to develop language that I love. I absolutely love using animal sets for developing language. And this can work for infants and toddlers. It also can work for preschoolers. And for preschoolers, you would want a more sophisticated set of animals like those on the right. But with the animals, young children love to learn to make the animal sounds. They can learn body parts. They can learn about where animals live, what they eat, what we need to do to take care of them. And then again, as they get older, there are all kinds of ways to really build on that into much more science information and geography. So they're just great tools for developing language at all levels. Of course, two of my favorite toys for developing language for those, especially that maybe are struggling to develop language, are Bubbles and Mr. Potato Head. So, as I look back over the scope of my career, I've done a lot of different things. But certainly one of the high points of my career was when I taught a 3.5-year-old with autism to talk. She had no functional language. When I first met her, her name's Amelia, and we started with Bubbles and Mr. Potato Head. And these were the toys that, with a lot of practice and a lot of effort, helped her learn to speak. And her father was in the military, in the Navy, and he, right after I started working with her, he had to deploy. He went out on a Navy ship for 6 months. And then he came back and he brought her into the clinic one day for my session with her. And he came back to my office and he said, I need to talk to you for a second. And I said, oh, welcome back. It's nice to see you. And he said, when I deployed 6 months ago, I left and Amelia wasn't saying a single word. And now I'm back 6 months later. And because of you, she said to me, I love you, Daddy. And, when you think about the impact of having that language for a parent who thought maybe his young daughter would never speak, and his joy in discovering that she could speak and what she had learned. And I think about the miracle of that, and the pride I have that I helped make that happen, but also just the miracle and power of language. So, and Amelia is now in college and she's studying to be a teacher, and we're Facebook friends. So we started with Bubbles and Mr. Potato Head. Developmentally appropriate practices number 5 and 6 that I chose from the list. Motivation to learn is enhanced by sense of belonging, purpose, and agency. And children learn best when they're challenged to achieve at a level just beyond their current mastery level. Having individual conversations each day with each child in your care is the best way to build their sense of belonging and purpose. And giving them great toys that challenge them to achieve just beyond where they are, especially with some simple prompts from you, is another great practice to promote language development and help children build their confidence and sense of purpose and agency. And I'd like to close with a tribute to Eric Carle. I'm sure all of you are aware that he passed away within the past week or two, and he was a master children's book author and illustrator, born in 1929 and died in 2021, so 91 years of age. And on his website, when he passed, they wrote, quote, "In the light of the moon, holding on to a good star, a painter of rainbows is now traveling across the night sky." What a beautiful, amazing tribute to everything that Eric Carle stood for. And then, of course, his most famous book among many famous books was The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And at some point he was interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, why do you think The Very Hungry Caterpillar has taken off and is as popular and beloved as it is? And his response to that was this quote, "Children need hope. You, little insignificant caterpillar, can grow up into a beautiful butterfly and fly into the world with your talent. Will I ever be able to do that? Yes, you will." I think that is the appeal of that book. So I will close with that tribute to Eric Carle. Here are a few references that I cited in the slides if you're interested in reading more about the research on language development. Thank you so much for joining me today, and feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email address, lbaylett@kaplanco.com. Thank you very much.